Welcome everyone to our Saturday conversation. You may have been here before, or you may have been with us on our Thought for the Days during the week, but nevertheless you've linked into the Avon Valley Partnership, that wonderful group of 7 churches to the northwest of the New Forest, and this is the Saturday conversation. I feel very new to this because 3 weeks ago today I had surgery and I'm still fairly bleary-eyed, but I'm delighted to be on this morning with Martin Ings. I pass Martin's house many a time, heading to and fro from Fordingbridge and Hyde. I see the dogs occasionally, I see Martin and Claire, but essentially we met at Hyde Church some time ago. And Martin is now, he's progressed rapidly through the ranks. He's now Churchwarden. So can I introduce you to Martin Ings? Hello, Martin. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Tell us something about your initial link, taking Claire over to Hyde and meeting us there.
Well, my links with Hyde are because of family. My family have been associated with Hyde since 1700s actually. In fact, one of the earliest graves in the Hyde churchyard is my 3 times great-grandfather James Ings and his wife Charlotte, who are buried in an unmarked grave on the left of the path as you head down to the church. And he was buried, and his wife were buried very shortly after the church was opened there. And all generations subsequently have been buried in that churchyard.
I must say that when we first sort of walked in the gate and I glanced left and right at headstones, I saw this word Ings, which I don't think I'd really met before coming to this neck of the woods. So I didn't realise you went back that far. That's great news, and you're treading in the footsteps of the past. Well done.
Yes, as I say, 1700s, so they moved to Hyde. They came from Wiltshire originally, came from Dinton, that area. And they're interesting, there are 2 different families of Ings in Hyde, and it's very hard. I find it impossible to find the link at the moment. It goes back before 1700, probably in Downton, that family came from, before coming down to Hyde. But I haven't got the links definitely yet.
Any idea of the meaning behind the surname Ings?
It's Anglo-Saxon, and it means a meadow.
Oh, right.
And you often find it associated with people's names with it attached afterwards, and sometimes without the S, like Reading, Woking, places like that. It means a meadow or place. And you find the name up in Yorkshire a lot. In fact, there's a place in Cumbria called Ings. It's just south of Windermere.
Oh, right. That's interesting because my middle daughter is going through our family tree at the moment, and she's traced us back to the Vikings as we knew. Anderson used to be Andersen, and then it was son of Andrew. So she's traced us back to Scandinavia and to Ireland. So yeah, I'm pleased to hear that about your family links.
Yeah, and they've been associated with the church in Hyde all the time, really. As I say, all the generations have been buried there.
Yeah.
My father was buried there in 2013.
Yeah. On these Saturdays, we often talk about the term faith journey, and I think we know what we mean by that. That what has been our steps in life to where we are at the moment. Would you say that you can tell us what events or which people have influenced your faith journey over the years?
Well, my parents weren't really churchgoers, to be honest, but my grandparents were, and my grandmother influenced me a great deal, although she was a Salvationist. Her family also came from Fordingbridge and Gourley, actually. And Burgate, all those local villages associated. And she was a very, very devout Salvationist. And my mother was brought up as a Salvationist, and I think she was rather forced to go to the Salvation Hall rather too much, because I think it rather put her off a bit, because she told me that she had to go 3 times on a Sunday, morning, afternoon and evening, and I think it was probably a bit much for her, but at that age. But my grandmother certainly was very devout. Yes. And when my mother, interestingly, had to get married, or got married in Fordingbridge Church, the baptism that she had then in the Salvation Army wasn't recognised by the Church of England at that time. So she had to be baptised just before she got married, because I believe the Salvation Army at that stage or earlier on, they used to wave flags over people to dedicate them rather than baptize them.
Yeah.
Although so she had to be baptized prior to her wedding. In fact, my father was one of her godfathers.
It's interesting to hear of your Salvationist background, because when I was sent to Basingstoke to start the church there on the new estate, and people met in our home before we went to the school and then a church building, or built a church. But we had everybody in our home from Salvation Army through to Roman Catholic, all living together on this brand new estate. And somehow we all rubbed along together, and then in due course moved down to the school and the church. But it's wonderful how denominations together can affect our background, as obviously it has in your family case.
Yes, yes. And my wife, Claire, she's brought up as a Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was quite surprised, I must say, when some years ago now, I suppose, we started a hymn, and there you were with a trumpet. Now, I associate trumpet with Remembrance Sunday and so on, but I think Barbara had said, would you accompany a hymn? I think I've got it right. And we had a fantastic time when I suddenly discovered that Martin was a professional trumpeter, professional musician. Tell us about that and your career going back through musician.
Well, my earliest musical experiences really were in Fordingbridge Church. I was a member of the choir there, and the choir master there was the very charismatic Roy Lillington, who has recently died, unfortunately, and in fact he left a great deal of money to the church there, which I'm sure they're very grateful for. And from when my voice broke, I concentrated on playing the trumpet, which I started to learn when I was at Bishop Wordsworth School in Salisbury. And the cathedral there was a great influence for me, because I did a lot of music in the cathedral as well. In fact, I went on to sing in the cathedral choir for a short while. But I played the trumpet there mainly, and went from there to the Royal College of Music. I went there in 1971 until 74, and studied with David Mason, who people probably won't know the name, but if they know the Beatles, that record Penny Lane, if they hear the high trumpet solo in Penny Lane, which is famous, he was the player for that.
Oh.
Yes, he was a very, very good teacher of mine.
Yeah. And so you would regard your musician abilities as a gift, really, to use in worship now.
Yes, I hope it does something for the worship and glorifies God in that way.
Yes.
I try to.
I'm seeing all your books behind you, and you can probably see books behind me. It's interesting how we can change the background to our conversation, can't we? But I know that a book I read years ago called Who Moved the Stone, very appropriate for Lent and the run up to Easter. I've just finished reading a book called Why the Cross, because I've been on my back for a week or so. It's been one of those easy books to read and to reflect on our journey through Lent and up to Easter. So Why the Cross, in a sense, is before Easter. But this wonderful book by Frank Morrison, Who Moved the Stone, I saw you waving that at me, a year or two back, and it had obviously touched you in a special way. Would you like to tell us, moving on after Easter, how you think that book could help people perhaps watching today?
Well, I found it a very, very interesting book, and it was a very easy read, and it answered some of the questions that I'd had myself before. I'd always been baffled by the fact that James in the Bible is a very important person later on after the resurrection, because he was the head of the church in Jerusalem, Jesus' brother James, and yet he doesn't really feature much in the Gospels. In fact, it's stated that Jesus' family didn't really believe in him, and I thought it must be amazing that he became almost probably at the resurrection became a devoted Christian, really, because he witnessed the resurrection, and I think that's really good proof that it happened, because he actually saw the resurrection. It changed his mind completely, almost at an instant. I imagine it did anyway, and that's talked about in that book quite a lot, and I found that was interesting. Also, the situation with women, in regard to women, I found that very interesting. Something I've always thought that was strange attitude to women that we have had, well, right up to the present, really. And I think Jesus was showing us the way by making Mary Magdalene the first person that went and reported the resurrection. And although even at that stage Peter didn't really believe it, he sent people to check it out. But Jesus was trusting her. So he was trusting women, and I thought that was an interesting thing that the Bible, that book shows us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's true that Frank Morrison's life really turned around in putting that book together?
I think so, because I don't think he was really a believer before that. I think he was doing it as a sort of an exercise, as a detective work, really. And in actually doing the detective work, he actually became to be a believer. And I think that was interesting too. That's happened to other people, I think, in writing other books as well.
Yeah.
That's happened to him.
Yes, it's interesting. The book I've been reading, Why the Cross. It's quite easygoing book, but it really does go right through the Gospels and the Epistles, saying why did Jesus have to go to the cross? So reading that up to Easter has been a help to me, and obviously, if people picked up Who Moved the Stone afterwards, it moves on from there, because you can't have the resurrection without the cross, and the cross is incomplete without the resurrection, and certainly without the resurrection there's no church. But I'm very pleased the way you've drawn out the importance of James and of women, because certainly in the New Testament the women were rather overlooked, and it's only Mary Magdalene in a sense being the first evangelist, and her enthusiasm, and then the other women obviously following on and supporting the early church as they did. They were part of the early church. In fact, as Paul travelled, he met women who were heading up the church in different parts of his travels. But thank you for drawing that together from that particular reading that you had. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us this morning? Because I've asked you to lead in a prayer appropriate to your life as we finish, but is there anything we've missed out that you were dying to say this morning? Because quite often in a conversation you walk away from somebody or something, say, gosh, I forgot to say that.
Well, I think, as you said before, it's been using my talent as a musician to in services to glorify God has been something I've got a lot of satisfaction out of recently. I think it's something it is uplifting, I think, especially the trumpet, which is helps with the joy aspect, but it also can help with the more sort of somber times, like in Remembrance Sunday. You know, people find that very moving as well. It's the other side of it, really, and it hasn't always got to be loud. I'd like to do more playing some more reflective music actually in church. That's what I like to carry on doing. So yes, I think it has been a useful thing, playing music in church. It's something that has helped me express myself, and that's probably the same for all people who do singing and playing instruments in church.
Yes, I think I'd probably say Remembrance Sunday isn't the same without a trumpet, but trumpeters are fairly thin on the ground when you're clergy looking for somebody to sound the last post in the valley. But certainly when you joined in the hymns and enhanced those considerably, I mean, we need the organ, we need the piano, we need other instruments, but actually for you to follow the flow of the music and enhance the music with the trumpet, I found very, very meaningful and very, very helpful. Do you want to pray for it? We spent a lot of time praying for the NHS recently. Perhaps a prayer for musicians who are longing to get back to church would be a good thing. So
the musicians I've spoken to, my ex-colleagues before I retired, so I was in Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra for almost 30 years, and I still keep in contact with them. In fact, some of them who've moved abroad now, and no one is playing anywhere. Some people have hardly played for a year. It's really sad. And I just hope everything gets going again after all lockdowns, and when we can get back to it. Yeah. So I have got a prayer for musicians, if that's okay.
Please
indulge me for prayer. Right. Yeah. O Lord, please bless our music, that it might glorify your name. May the talent that you have bestowed upon us be used to serve you. Let our music be a witness to your majesty and love, and remind us that you are always watching and listening from your throne above. May your presence and beauty be found in every note, and may the words that are sung reach the hearts of your people so they will draw closer to you. May your Spirit guide us through every measure so that we might be the instruments of your peace and proclaim your glory with glad voices. Amen.
Amen. Martin, thank you so much for joining us this morning and leading us into Saturday. And we'll say goodbye until we see people again, either in Thought for the Day or other conversations, or hopefully in worship together soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.